Good morning, brothers and sisters. When I was in high school, one of my favorite games was Warcraft 3. What I loved most about it was the world editor. In there, I could make my own maps, design my own characters, and create my own special effects. I use the trigger editor a lot, so that has taught me some of the logic processes within the game. And I loved it so much that sometimes I didn't even do my homework until the next day because of playing it. And sometimes I would play so much that I would be sleepy on the next day of school, and I didn't really pay much attention in class because of my sleepiness. So the question is, was I spending my time wisely? Right off the bat, most people would agree that I wasn't spending my time wisely. But looking back, this apparent unwise use of my time um, has taught me creativity, logic, storytelling, character design, and critical thinking. This also allowed me to gain the knowledge and appreciation of using computers to create and to solve problems. Such skills have led me to a career in the IT industry where I still practice these skills today. Though I don't design characters or write stories, I was able to design logic processes that were used in automating our team's work. In a way, a logic process is just a story of a data input transforming into a final output. Countless people, including some people I personally know, ended up in the gaming industry. So, the gaming industry, as we know, is rapidly expanding. Masahiro Sakurai, the director of Smash Brothers, mentioned that he would normally play Smash Brothers during lunch with his colleagues, and they would try to figure out how the game needs to be balanced. So, what a career, right? Combining work and play. Many others are also combining work and play. And I just don't mean people in game development. So there are esports gamers, YouTube and Twitch streamers, and even in game content creators that make a lot of money and find their success in what they do. So, just a side note, did you know that people make money off of selling their Minecraft maps and custom skins? Amazing. So, people can also give recreation or gain recreation, improve creativity while helping identify their passions. The same goes with people that love watching TV, actors, critics, streamers, advertisers, and media producers combine their pastimes with work. So is playing games or even watching TV really an unwise use of time? Subsequently, is it best to retain our traditional views on fun and entertainment in a changing world? To me, the answer is sometimes. I broke down the main question and tried to define what unwise use of time really means. So I came up with two things that I can use to describe unwise use of time. It's unwise if it's not balanced, and uh, it's also unwise when it has little to no relevant effect. So, an unbalanced use of time is when we do too much of something, such as too much play, even if there are benefits to what we are playing with. There is a point where the benefit utility diminishes over time. So, let's say playing 1 hour of computer games gives you a unit of happiness. The next hour will give you less happiness. The third hour gives you even less until you get bored of the game. Another example is how working out for an hour every day builds muscle. Working out for 2 hours may be okay, but any longer than that, and you could be burning muscle instead of building it. Limiting activities to amounts of time will give you the best utility. Further, even if our pastimes are productive, spending too much time on our pastimes is not good. We will miss out on other activities such as time with family, exercise, chores, and in most cases, sleep. We all know that has good health and mental benefits, so it might not be wise to sleep less than is needed every day. Another way to define that what unused time really is, or unwise use of time rather, is to look at an activity's relevance in our lives and then visualize the effect that that activity produces. Relevance is how important something is in your life, perhaps a passion, a tradition, etc. Effect is the positive change brought about by an activity. For instance, if you love scrolling through Facebook, you might learn a few things. But do these things really produce a relevant effect? If you think that Facebook gives you tips on how to cook and you eventually use those tips when cooking, then great. Relevant since cooking food is a necessity, even more when you're cooking for a family. And it's also effective since there was a change or an improvement to your cooking. But if you use Facebook for mere entertainment, such as looking through memes, then you might want to reevaluate if the activity is even worthwhile. I am also not saying that memeing is bad. Sometimes memes can be good. They give viewers a sense of awareness or even spark a revolution. But that would depend on the topic and its relevance in our lives. So if we look at political memes, they might give more insight as to how we look at our government. But memes about pineapples on pizza, they just don't produce the same effect. I mean, a debate and rally on politics could change the world, yes, relevant and effective. But a debate and rally on pineapples on pizza, it seems absurd. Perhaps relevant, yeah, because it's our passion. We may or may not like pineapples on pizza, but it's not effective unless, of course, you own a pizzeria and decide to change your menu after some market research. So, again, the keywords are relevance and effect. So, what do you do that has little relevance and effect? Can you consider limiting that activity? I love playing Minecraft. I consider it relevant since it's a passion, but after realizing the effect is small, I don't play it as often as I used to. Perhaps when Cody is older, I can teach him Minecraft. I can imagine teaching him the rules of the game and helping him improve on creativity. And this is more effective as an activity than playing by myself. Not to mention improving our relationship as a father and son. So now that I have defined what unwise use of time is, we can now look at how unwise use of time can be converted into a wise use of time. So, vision, goals, and plans in that order. I've mentioned this before in a previous talk, but I'd like to go over this briefly, adding insights from this talk. Vision. It starts with looking at the big picture. What do you want to be 5 years from now? Goals. Once you have that vision, what are your goals to achieve that identity? What are your key performance indicators that can let you know you are improving? What is my time frame for each of these goals? These goals. Plans. Break down the goals. Break down the goals. Do your activities now align with those goals? What are the activities you can stop or start doing to reach your goals? A habit I have at work, which is what I learned from the mission, is planning at the end of the day. So you plan to identify what things you must do tomorrow to achieve your goals. So when planning, I use a calendar rather than a to-do list. Using a calendar allows you to designate at which time you would be doing something. Without setting a specific time for an activity, you might just end up not doing it at all. I would really recommend not using to do lists, but rather using calendars instead. Writing down what you will be doing the next day helps rewire and prepare your brain to get the focus you need for that day. Sometimes we are given non urgent deadlines. Parkinson's law says work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. This means if I give you 10 days to write a paper on Christian imagery used in The Lord of the Rings, for example, then you will take 10 days to finish that task. If I give you 30 days, then you will likely finish it in 30 days. If I don't give you a deadline, then probably you won't do it at all. So essentially, the more time you have to complete something, the longer it will take you to finish it. The less time you have to complete your goal, the more likely is that you will complete it in the proposed time. But if a goal does not have a specific deadline, then it will most likely never get done. Normally, we would procrastinate if we know we have more time, more than enough time to do a task. If we really know that we have more than enough time, then I suggest you set your own deadline to a shorter time period. So when you're doing this, be realistic and don't you don't need to set a deadline for something that requires a lot of work to an maybe let's say an hour. Make your deadline realistic and include that deadline in your planner as well. The one big problem when it comes to time management is distractions. So um, even with all our planning and eagerness to make wise use of our time, distractions do come, especially when we feel lazy. It can get tempting to check what's happening on Facebook when we're getting tired of doing some work. Um, I noticed that if you lack sleep as well, then there's more of an urge to get lazy during work. So get enough sleep. There's another tip I found on YouTube. It's called the 20-second rule. So I recently watched that video and it gave me insight on the 20-second rule and how we can use our laziness to our advantage. The video teaches about using the 20-second rule, which tells us to make something we should, or to make something we should stop doing 20 seconds harder to do. Or um, while it also tells us that we should make something that we want to start doing 20 seconds easier to do. So we do this by decreasing the obstacles that hinder us from doing something we want to start doing, while increasing the obstacles for the things we want to stop doing. So, for instance, I want to learn how to play the guitar. If I put the guitar in the case and the case in my closet, then it will take a lot more preparation time just to start playing the guitar. I have to go to my closet, open it, get the case, open the case, and get my guitar out. Um, so it's a lot more difficult than just going to the living room, sitting down on the couch, and turning on the TV. So more often than not, our natural laziness will opt to watch the TV instead. And making the TV inaccessible by putting the remote in the closet, uh, switching it up, right? While putting the guitar on the stand in the living room makes the instrument more accessible. And this will result to many just choosing to play the guitar rather than having to look for the remote in the closet. Another example is when we're making a random password for our social media accounts and not remembering that password in the browser. Um, we can take a screenshot maybe of our password and save that somewhere, maybe in your email. Therefore, every time you want to use your social media account, you'll have to look through your email, find that image you've taken a screenshot of, type manually the characters in your password just so you can use your social media account. So eventually, you keep doing this and you'll remember your password over time. If that happens, just change your password. The longer and more random your password, the better. And there are also browser extensions that log you out of social media accounts after a few minutes. Meanwhile, you can also leave a book on the table as an alternative to using social media. If you use social media to promote business, mind who you follow. Your news feed can get cluttered sometimes with junk. So just mind who you follow. Your mobile phone can also be a huge distraction. You can get around this by putting it somewhere else, away from you, or by deleting apps. You can move gaming and social media apps into folders, and maybe put those folders in a different screen. You can manage notification settings using silent mode and leaving it, as I said earlier, in a different room. So the next step is to know when too much is too much. Be sensitive to yourself and to the world around you. In the mission, I had a companion that would normally say, I should do this more, referring to techniques that missionaries use when teaching. Likewise, he would say that he should stop doing some things that he wants to stop doing. And I learned from this and I started applying it in my life. And I would sometimes tell myself that I'm playing too much games or I'm using too much social media. And when those times come, I would apply preventive measures to that behavior. Again, this goes in line with balancing your time. The next is be an active and not a passive consumer. And Andrew Kirby, he's one of the um, YouTubers, and he talks about self improvement. In one of his videos, he mentioned that there are two types of people that watch YouTube. So I believe the same concept in that video can be applied to people who use social media in general. So the first type of person is one that opens the app and scrolls through the app to look for as much stimulation as they possibly can. When they find a video or post they might be interested to watch in, they watch and they continue scrolling afterward. So they're looking, and then afterwards they would look for another post or video that could give them more stimulation. These people barely even learn anything from such videos. So the second type is one that decides to use the app and already knows what to search for beforehand. And for what purpose? Is it for education or for entertainment? Then these people take action after consuming such media. Knowing the difference of what type of um, consumer you are helps us to introspect and think. Um, are we passive consumers? Are we active media consumers? Does my use of Finsta make me a passive consumer? Do I have control over when I use social media or when or how I spend my leisure time? Do I take action after what I watch or read? What are the things I can do to be a more active consumer? So, to summarize, we've learned the importance of balancing our time, doing activities with relevance and effect, and planning. We learned a few techniques on how to control our distractions, namely the 20-second rule, being aware of too much, becoming active consumers, and even getting enough sleep. That we do not idle, but rather become better at time management and make the most out of the limited time we are given in this probation is my prayer. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.